Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video for Honeybee Stamps. Today we are going to be using the Fall Leaves 3D embossing folder, the Give Thanks. I'm actually only using the stamps and dies. I'm not using the stencil. And then the kind of star of the show is this bountiful banner. It has stamps, dies, stencils, and then this new really fun impression plate. So we're going to be using all of them and kind of mixing and matching our products. When I was sitting down to do it, I feel like I've kind of been stuck in a rut with color combinations lately. I've shared that with you guys. So here I picked out a color combination. It's like a forest green, a teal, a plum, craft, black, and a gold accent. And I'm going to try my very best to stay true to that because I just feel like it kind of helps me grow and helps it so that all of my products don't look exactly the same. For the 3D embossing folder, you could use it by itself and it looks absolutely beautiful, but I wanted it to be just a little bit more interesting. So I am brayering on some pigment ink. I'm going to do them both on craft. The first one I'm using Honeybee's Brilliant White pigment ink. And so as I was brayering it, because some of the leaves and like the acorns are like a little bit more round, I decided I was going to try to add a little bit more ink to those areas, and I did that with a pouncer. Now, does that mean that I got ink on my background as well? Yeah, it does. So this one, if you're looking for a super clean look, don't do the pouncer part. The brayer portion will just sit on top. The pouncer is really going to get into like all the nooks and crannies so that the whole thing has just kind of a white overcast. And what I mean by that is it won't just be pushed down into the embossed parts. So then I spritzed my craft cardstock. This is Desert Storm by Nina. No, I'm lying. It's Sand by Hero Arts. Sorry. And then I'm going to tape this in place so there's no chance that it moves around and smears my ink. And then I'm going to run this through my Spellbinders Platinum 6. Here we are back again, and now that it's completed, and you'll be able to see this is just a really nice, soft, dimensional background, but it still has all the interest of those leaves embossed into it. For the second one, I'm going to do just the brayer, no pouncing, and for that one, I am going to use our metallic gold pigment ink. And this one's probably, of the two, my favorite of the backgrounds, because not my favorite cards, mind you. We'll talk about that. But I just really love the metallic shine, and because like pigment ink takes a long time to dry, they're the best options for doing techniques like this. But they dry rather quickly once you emboss them into the paper because it's such a light layer. So again, I just spritzed the back of my paper with a little bit of water to help get a deeper impression and not crack my paper, and then went ahead and ran it through, and then you can still see all of this like beautiful shimmery gold in the background. Love, love, love the way that that one came out. So one's just a little bit softer than the other. Now we're going to move on to our stamping. So the Bountiful Banner set has one large image here. It is the full background size of an A2 size card. And it also has some little add-ons, like some little flowers. We're going to be using both today. I'm going to stamp 2 of these in our intense black ink because I am going to be doing some Copic coloring. But because I want to just stay true to that color palette, I did have to do some stenciling as well. So I had a bubble, and this is something, sorry I shook the camera, this is something with larger backgrounds. I really should have checked it before I started inking it up, but I didn't. So when you get that bubble, it can create unevenness in your stamping surface, and to fix that, all you need to do is just like pick up one corner of the stamp and then let it fall back naturally, and it won't trap any new air, and it'll let the air that is trapped escape. Here is those extra pieces parts I was talking about. There's 2 florals and 2 leaves, and I just stamped a couple of those so that I could use them as an accent. Now, from the title, you may be wondering, Kelly, you mentioned the future of stamping is here. What does that mean? And what it means is it's coordinating products. And that really is, so many stamp companies are offering this now, where they have the all the extras. So the stamps used to just be stamps. Well, then the stamps have dies. Then the stamps have dies and they have stencils. And now they have stamps and dies. And now here we are with impression plates. So the thing is, and I've seen other YouTubers kind of poo-poo these collections. I don't see it that way at all. I see it as being more inclusive for everybody. So let's say, like, for example, you have an image like this, you love it, it's clearly meant to be colored, but you aren't a colorist, or you don't enjoy it, or you actually cannot do it. You for some reason, for dexterity issues, you cannot color, but you can ink blend. Well, now this opens up this whole new stamp set, because they all have, well, not all of them, but in this set, they all have layering stencils. So you don't have to have a bunch of markers or a bunch of pencils or a bunch of whatever to make it work. You just have to have ink. And almost all of us have some sort of ink because we're doing stamping. So I think it's really fantastic in this case, like with this particular one. And I noticed that a lot of more companies are turning to this style of stenciling because it is substantially more detailed. You don't actually need the stamp if you don't want it. So you could use a stencil by itself. And this one, the Bountiful Banners, actually has two types of die cuts. And I'm going to use them both. You'll see them later. It has one that just cuts out the outline of this. And then it has one that cuts out the outline, but then it cuts out all those intricate pieces in the middle to make it look even more detailed. And, depending upon what kind of product that you want to use, you could make a choice about which one of those you purchase. So I just think it makes everything so much more versatile. And you guys know I'm always talking about getting more value out of your items or getting more bang for your buck. Well, you're only getting value out of your items if you're using them. And if you're a person who struggles with coloring, then you're not going to use them. But maybe you'll use the stencils. It just, to me, these particular types of collections, especially where you can kind of see that, you don't need the stencils or you don't need the stamp to use the stencils. You don't need the die to use the stamps. You know what I mean? It gives us the power to make the choice of what kind of cards or projects we want to be putting together without having to get all of the things. The other thing that is really nice is because you have these collections, oftentimes stamp companies will offer a discount on the bundle. So if you're going to buy them all, you'll get a discount on the items because you are purchasing them all together. So, I mean, just some things to think about. I've heard, like I said, other crafters, YouTubers, kind of poo-poo it for different reasons, that it forces you into buying more product, or that, it's putting too much product out on the market, or, that they don't actually work well together. I don't think any of that is true. I work for a lot of companies who do this. Honeybee does it, Spellbinders does it, Trinity Stamps does it. There's just a lot of options out there for this, Pink First Studios. They were the first ones that really put it out there. And I think that it gives you or me as the customer more choices in what we do or do not want. Like, we're not forced into getting it. So I like that very much. Speaking of discounts, it's Labor Day weekend, there's tons of sales going on. So I have updated my crafty page if you're interested in seeing what is on sale. Save yourself some dollars this weekend. So I'll link that below in the YouTube description if you're interested in checking it out. But yeah, so that's that. Now, the reason that I did the stenciling, I know we're way past the stenciling, we're onto the Copa coloring, but the reason I had to do the stenciling is because I really wanted to stay super true to that color palette that I picked to kind of break myself out of that routine that I've been in. And but I didn't have Copic markers that would give me that plum color on my flower. So I had to put down a base color, which was the picked raspberry and the seedless preserves, to help make my flowers truly a plum color. And again, that's another thing. Like, it opens up so many more techniques, because if I didn't have the stencil, then either I would have to go in and do my ink blending over the flower, fussy cut it out, and then Copic color it, or I would have to purchase then more markers for me to get the color that I wanted. Instead, I can combine the two and end up with something that I really like, that is the correct color. So yeah. So anyway, we talked about craft sales. We talked about that. These, I really like the Give Thanks, and it's not part of this collection. It's part of its own collection. It has a stamp die and a stencil, but it's beautiful. I mean, the hand lettering on it is stunning, and so I really wanted to use it while also showing you how you could get more out of the Bountiful Banner collection by combining it with other products. So even though there's all these products available for the Bountiful Banner, you don't have to use them by themselves. You can incorporate them into other things and, again, get more mileage out of what you have, get more value out of the money you've spent. So here, this background is actually going to be the one that is used very traditionally, and the way I think that it was probably intended. You know, it's been stenciled, it's been colored, it's here I'm just adding some shading on the banner. I am going to just stamp my sentiment right in the middle here, and I'm going to die cut that out, and that's going to be my focal point. I'm not going to do anything extra to it. And here I'm just showing you the difference between the two, having it colored and uncolored, and the dimension that you can get. So now I'm picking out all of my dies so that I can go ahead and start my die cutting. Here is the one that is the very intricate involved, the one on the right, and the one on the left just cuts it out as one whole piece. So the one that cuts it out as one whole piece is actually the one that comes with the impression plate. The one that cuts out all the intricate middle sections is the die that comes with the full die set. So it has the dies for that. It has the dies for the sentiments, for the extra florals. It matches its set. But you'll notice, see how I'm taping it down on this one? My banner isn't matched up. Make sure when you're looking, because the top and the bottom are identical, that you're looking to make sure your banner is lined up, because that matters. So since I had never used these before and I had to figure it out, I talked to Kelly Cahoot, who also does for Honeybee, and I asked her, I was like, girl, do I use the impression plate before or after? And she was like, I don't know. I haven't played with the impression plate and the stamp yet. So ultimately, I decided to die cut them and then do the impression plate. And I do think that that is probably the way to go. So once you have it die cut, and I wanted to see if you could do it with both, like the impression plate with the solid piece or the impression plate with the intricate die cut, and you can do it with both. So here's my sandwich. I have the universal plate system from Spellbinders. I have an A plate, a B plate, and then I have my stamped piece that's attached to the impression plate. I just wrapped tape along both sides so it didn't move. The trick to that is you want to have it face up so that it's pressing upwards, and then the embossing mat and the adapter plate. I also put in my shim just because my machine isn't, it's a little loose. It needs a little bit more pressure. And I got beautiful results. You'll see them when we go to put the card together. Here we're doing the sentiments. I'm really on this black and gold kick. And while I was willing to switch up my color combination, I was like, no, I'm using gold as an accent, and I have black. I'm using it together. And I'm so glad I did, because the Give Thanks embossed in black, or embossed in gold on black, is like chef's kiss. Like, it's so beautiful. So I treated it with my anti-static tool, and then I inked it up with that same Honeybee Gold Metallic ink. I stamped it down, and now I am heat embossing with gold embossing powder. You're going to see, as soon as the heat hits it, how it starts to turn, which the metallic is always magical anyway. But, like, the detail on that hand-lettered stamp really just, and probably because I do my own hand lettering as well, I can super appreciate it. It's just beautiful. It is enough to carry a card by itself. You could just stamp that down on a background and pretty much have a winner. See how excited I am? I was even clapping. So now I'm going to go in with my die cuts. I'm going to cut everything out. I did die cut out the happy birthday, but I actually didn't ended up liking the way that it looked with that card. So I switched it up. So here, you guys know me. I can't have cards that look too much the same. But also I wanted to show you that even though we picked the same colors and all of the cards had the same color scheme, dependent upon how much of each color you use is going to give you a completely different look. So, like the old school gallon, pint, quart rule, if you change up what is your gallon, you're going to get a totally different look. So for this card, my gallon is going to be the black. I am just going in with a Copic marker, and I'm just coloring in the entire background. You might think this would take 100 years, but it's actually not that bad. This one did take me a little bit longer than some other pieces, just because there's so much to color. But here you can see how like those jewel tones totally pop off the black. I die cut the black banner out of the center just to completely cover that up. And now I can put this give thanks on top of it, and you wouldn't even know that it didn't belong there. They look beautiful together. So here I'm going ahead and just starting to build everything together. Die cutting that black banner was just easier than taking the time to color it all in. So that is why I chose to do it that way. If you did not have the die cuts, you could just color it black and get the same look. So I have a black piece of cardstock that I am mounting on gold. It's just slightly smaller. It's like 4 1/8 by 5 or 5 3/8. I don't know. It's just I cut 1/8 of an inch off each side, guys. That's the math. You know me. I can't math. So I just adhered everything down flat. I think that a lot of these would be super beautiful with the things popped up, but because I kind of had so many layers I was building on, I didn't want to do that. I also wanted to go in. You probably noticed when I was doing my stenciling, I really, really kind of lost the insides of the flowers, like the actual stamen. So I'm going to go in with gold perfect pearls, and I'm going to add those little dots back into the flowers. I also use them to add gold highlights to the little berries and tiny little flowers, which I think is really beautiful. You see all that gold shimmer. And then you know me, and the kind of vibe that I've been feeling lately is the spatters, and so we're going to do some more of those as well. We're just going to kind of spatter it on the background. I wanted to do this before I put my sentiment on because I didn't want to muddy up the legibility of the sentiment. So I did my little gold spatters, and then I'm going to go ahead and adhere this down. You don't have to use any of the sub-sentiments. Like in this one, I'm using in all things. So it'll say give thanks in all things, which I think is really pretty. But you could just put the give thanks on there and that would be sufficient. I like the little sub-sentiments, but that's my personal preference. You totally do not have to do that. But I think I would probably recommend it if that was the only thing you were putting on the card. But this card is a little bit busier. Having it all black kind of does mute it down a little bit, but ultimately that ends up being my favorite card. This one, we went in a completely different direction and made the gallon, if you will, that craft color in the background. And then here we left everything else really soft. So it still has the white outline. It incorporates all of the colors. And I'm going to do the same thing with the gold. I'm going to go back in, put in the centers, do the splatters, all that jazz. But because we have that white outline and the softer white pigment embossed, it's going to give a completely different vibe than the other one, even though the color palette is the same. Just changing up the amount that we used of each color. Like this one, my pint is for sure is black. There's very little of it even in this at all. Just in the stamping and then just in the little bit of the sentiment. For this one, this is showing you that you can get more out of it without using the focal point. So for this one, again, the gallon is going to be that craft. The quart is going to be the black. And the pint is going to be that like plum and green color. So here, remember how I was saying, and I've said it multiple times, like that you could just use a sentiment. I think that this card in and of itself right there with like the texture in the background and then the sentiment, I think that this is a beautiful monochromatic card. I wanted to give it a little bit of like pops of color and kind of extend out the design. So I'm going to tuck these little flowers from the Bountiful Banner set in there. You may notice it doesn't look great. So here I did the same thing with the Gold Perfect Pearls. I put in my centers, I put down some splatters. Because I had the gold embossing in the background, you couldn't really see the gold splatters as much. So I decided I was going to switch it up just a little bit and do some white splatters as well. So this is just slightly watered down acrylic paint, and then I'm going to put those in the background. Really like the way that that came out. And then from there, you guys know with the die cuts, like I do not love white die cut. So instead of normally, I would blend them into the background, but this time I'm going to color them black. Well, mostly like where the leaves butt up to the flowers, I colored that part green, and you'll see that. But so by coloring them black, I am attaching them visually to the sentiment and making them look like they are one piece instead of attaching them to the background and pushing them away. We're bringing them into the foreground by coloring them black and attaching them to the sentiment. So these were like 3 totally different cards, but super, super fun. For those of you who have been asking about the auction, that will be live September 15th. I am auctioning off a 3-card like art panels. And then I am also, my friend Dawn Wolslagel and I, you should be familiar with both of us because we both do honeybee videos. If you don't see us anywhere else, we're actually auctioning off a craft session. So it will be a virtual craft session that you will be able to craft with both Dawn and I. We'll be able to answer any of your questions, teach you anything that you would like to know. She does watercolor, I do Copics, or you can just, sit around and chat with our bubbly personalities. So anywho, these are the 3 cards. I hope you learned a little something. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I always appreciate your time, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.